teacher. Her theatre work has traveled nationally and internationally, and she has taught in universities in India and abroad. She is a board member of Vivadi, a cross-discipline working group of theatre makers, visual artists, filmmakers, musicians, and writers. Among her acclaimed productions are Nalival Lidki, Dark Things with Ivan Shivaraman, and Groundkeepers in collaboration that project with the artist Vivan Sundaram in 2015, Vedasa in 2013, Dr. Jekyll and Hyde 2012, Chief Governor 2011, Hena Muller's Counters 2006, Patak Sahar Mumbai 2001, and T-Clinic Project Court Director in 2003. Sundari and African Prayers in 1997, the job 1996, Vijay Katuka's Patasa Mumbai 2004. Her writings and performance have been widely analyzed, and her book Actor Prepared, Actors, Pilgrims, Kings and Gods, the Ramlila at Ramnagar was published by Single Books, Kolkata in 1993, 2004. Thank you. And next, we have Maya Krishnarabu. Maya Krishnarabu is a theatre maker and teacher. She devises performances that range from dance theatre to comedy and cross-media. Her teaching practice focuses on areas of performance making and applied theatre. Maya has taught at MST and Shivamala University, where she designed and taught a postgraduate diploma program, TEST, Theatre for Education and Social Transformation, a first of its kind in India. She was also a visiting faculty at Ashoka University. And next, we have Anjum Katyal. Anjum Katyal is a writer, editor, and translator. She has been chief editor, Single Books, as well as editor, Single Theatre Quarterly Calcutta, web editor, Saregama HMV, and editor, Art and the City. She is the author of several books on theatre and performance, including Habib Tanvir, Towards an Inclusive Theatre, and Bhagat Saga. Towards the Theatre of Conscience, books of the Kashmir, towards a democratic theatre is in process. She has translated works by Habib Tanvir, Mahashila Devi, and Meera Mukherjee. She is currently director of the Kolkata Literary Festival and curator, Labana Earth Weekend, a festival of arts and ideas, as well as editor of Art and Arts Journal. Thank you.
Hello, yeah, great. Thank you very much for the introductions. So we are going to have a very interesting opportunity to hear two theatre makers, two artists in conversation. And I really would like it to be a session where they are in conversation. With Brecht as a sort of a central point of reference and all that comes out of the connections with Brecht. And one of the things that I was thinking before when I was planning how we'll approach this session is that if there's one thing that we've all sort of take away about Brecht is that he's all about thinking, right? It's this whole concept of being a thinking theatre philosopher, theatre maker, and both of the artists who are here today, Maya Rao as well as Anuradha Kapur, have this way of building that, pushing the boundaries of thinking very much into their work. You know, it's a lot about ideas. It's very powerful theatrically, but it also is circulating in the realm of ideas, the work that they do. And that I feel is a very interesting connection with the way we interpret Brecht and we approach Brecht. So I wanted to just ask them both that you must have encountered Brecht when you were youngster. We know that you did encounter him in college, right? When you were just new to theatre, new to everything, politics, everything that's going to shape your life later. So what was that feeling like of meeting Brecht at that age, you know, and what he stood for or what he brought to the table? You want to share the mic? Should we?
Well, that's a nice question. It's also a question that could become all nostalgic, so I'll try not to do that. I think I encountered Brecht in 1968, and it was readings from the songs and the poems. And then together in Miranda House, Delhi University, Maya and I decided to do a project with many of our classmates and people from the other colleges, and that was the Mother, the Brecht text. And I just want to point out one thing, it was a time which is quite collaboratory at that moment, and it was important because I still remember, and I think that in some senses set many of prior ideas out of the window, and some of the ideas that have still remained with me took shape then. But the first translation of Brecht's Mother in Hindi was done for that Miranda House production. And it was done by Balraj Pandit, who had a very fine reputation at that time as a playwright. But he did it for us. And the first design of Bansi Kaul outside the National School of Drama was for this Mother. And it was done in the Miranda House auditorium. And what was something that I remember very well, Mr. Arakazi came to see the show because I think it had, yes. And I think it was a time when campus theatre had a lot of energy. And one of the things that I think we were thinking about at that time, and which I still think is important, was the kind of energy of the text. And that energy of the text, whether it was the songs or whether it was actually the lines of the play, which I think Balraj had done a wonderful job, it had a push to the lines, something that I was talking about yesterday, about making word and action come together. And I think just the fact that a dialogue can do that was very exciting. And much of the music of the play, which I'll just mention again just now, there was the Mother, and then after that, that was in Hindi, and then after that, we did St. John of the Stockyards in an open space in Miranda House, which was not usual at that time. And the green room was the library, which was also most unusual, that the principal allowed us to wander around in costume
so was
in
Maya
the library.
Part of that as well?
Maya was part of that.
Yeah.
So we
always played the main role. I was not cast, I cast myself.
And Anu directed.
You just take that with a bit of salt because I was there as director. So, so anyway, so those two. But one of the things that I remember, and which is an energy I think that I hope one can still carry, was, if you remember, Maya, we composed most of the music there, sitting in auto rickshaws, coming from Delhi to Delhi University. And so all of them had a similar beat because the auto rickshaw had a pretty similar beat. And so we sang our way through and then arrived there. Now, I think I just want to say two things. I think one of the things that kept with me was the interest in a certain kind of text that was dealing with ideas in a different way from naturalism, in a different way from where an idea becomes a person. Here, the idea remains an idea, and you have to deal with it. That was something there. And the idea of a certain groupness while working at the theatre, and that is finding a way of doing a scene. That has kept with me because I have been interested in devising all the way from there. I'm not saying that is devising, but it was finding a way of doing a scene from which you had no grammar. And though we may have read about Brecht, but the model book or any such thing was not primary in our heads. It was how to communicate with a bunch of young students, many of whom had some campus theatre interests, but not something that might carry them to professional training. So it was a very mixed thing.
So Maya, how do you remember it?
Yes, now I'll just add to what Anu was saying. For us, it didn't come first via Brecht. It suddenly occurred to me. When we were in school together, we also happened to have been in school together. Can you imagine how boring? So in school, we had a kind of form that was introduced to us by our Hindi teacher probably, which was Brechtian in its own way. It was called the Rupak. And Rupak mein, you had some narration, some dance, some singing, some what was called Indian ballet, the Uday formations, still images we had. We never called them that. We had an Uday Shankar type of dance practice. So I think in some way, as Anu was speaking, it just came to me that we had already a pre-Brechtian form, which was then to gain pura form when we entered college. And so I think somewhere we slipped into Brecht with ease. The other thing that came to mind as Anu was speaking was this is a time when in university, ideas of Marxism are coming in. We are 68, there's been Sorbonne, and Marxism is coming into the university. So are ideas of, we called it women's power. It wasn't feminism, it was women's power. And so then in that context, to be looking at Brecht. And so our discovery of politics came via the poems and the texts of Brecht. So that when there was Founders' Day in Miranda House, for us to stand on stage and say, everything or nothing, all of us or none, to the principal's face, because we were the workers and she was the exploiter. There was not a nicer woman on earth, but for us, she was the exploiter. And so for us, Brecht and his poems, so in a way, we were reintroduced to the art of theatre via all the forms, music, dance, theatre, which we had practiced in school. So dance was not quite there on the Miranda stage in the mother production or even in St. John. But I think there was a kind of flow, a seamless flow from school into college. And we understood politics on campus also somewhat from the readings we were making of the poetry and the texts of Brecht.
Right. So you've actually, between you, you've talked of form, you've talked of the aesthetics, and you've also talked of the politics and the ideas that sort of infused that time and that experience and encounter. So now I know that both of you did the job, right? So we decided that we would talk about that, because how often do you get to sit with two people who've taken the same work and done their own thing with it? So who would like to go first, just to talk about?
There'll be some of this performativity here. You might forgive it. Huh?
I may stop her if she takes too long, which has not been happening so far in many of the sessions. I may play moderator with you.
Yeah, sure. And how am I to interfere between two friends who go back to high school, or even older than high school?
Enemies now.
Actually, now, shall I start?
Yeah.
Thank you, Maya. So it was, I think there were many interrelated thoughts at that time when we both did job. But I think the form that we both took was completely different. My working on the job was, in some senses, it was started with with Nalini Malani wanting to work on the text while I was also working on the text. And she then designed objects, and both painted objects and structures, and fabricated objects, and what she called at that time a theatrical installation that was set up in the NCPA in Bombay. And so like objects like a quilt, like a series of cartons, like glass jars, a fairground peep show, all these she designed or fabricated while we rehearsed in Delhi with a wonderful actor called Ritu. And in some senses, we were running parallel. There was one object that was designed according to Ritu's height, which was which she called the pistons. They were circular objects with a mylar sheet around them, which she painted, which were brought down from the top of the NCPA, sometimes on the actor, and sometimes hovering just above the actor. So this was only done to measure, but the actual functioning with the object happened at the NCPA. We had a long rehearsal period there, which was very lucky for us. And so one set of objects, as I said, was done by Nalini, and another set of objects came into the play via Ritu and her devising the play while we were working together. They were completely different objects. Hers were painted and fabricated. Ritu's objects, via our working, were all material, like plastic bags, old shoes, basins, ustra. So all this kind of thing which she was using as performance. So they came in. So there are two kinds of objects in that play. And I think one of the things that was the most difficult was to find a relationship between the two. The painted object had a kind of almost a nightmarish quality to it. And Nalini Malani, if you know her work, has carried on making those circular drums with paintings. She often calls them shadow play. So for just a minute, I'll just give a sense of the frame, and then I'll show you some clips. The entire performance was devised, and it was devised and on a situation. I heard Maya talk the other day about, let us say, the dough, which she was talking about. She'll probably talk about it today. But we were also trying to find out objects that may transfer from a woman to a man, and objects that don't transfer from a woman to a man. And the main action that Ritu found was shaving. So she tried a lot with shaving, but the interesting thing she did was that she broke eggs, and the eggshell was put on the face and then shaved off. So many probably kind of, let's say, images might have emerged about eggs, about the babies, about being a woman and who tries to shave, but she did the shaving with the greatest of precision. So one of the things that she was working was that whatever the material that she was using, and this is something that has concerned me all the way through, and I think it does come from Brecht, is that you respect the material that you're dealing with. So if it's a knife, then you respect the knife. You can't pretend that it's anything else. If you say in the mother pani sa patla soup and you have a bowl in the hand, you would have to make a decision what is the nature of that bowl. So the material actually produces the acting style. Rather than you deal with the material and say, do this, the material tells you what to do. And that's very, in that sense, Brechtian. Because the Brecht whole understanding of what would be materialist positioning would be, you look at the material, you let it do what it does, do not pretend to master it every day. Mastering a material for an actor could be fake, because you may not master it. This woman may not master shaving very well, because she's a woman, she doesn't have a beard. So she will have to find a way that it looks that she does that. The other thing that we had all the time, which was the very wonderful opportunity of a student pianist coming in who was Ritu's classmate in England. And she came and she was live on the floor. And another aspect to this was a pretty terrific translation, early translation by Atul Tiwari. And we did not change it to dialogue. It ran as some text on the PA system, some spoken by Ritu, but not made into dialogue. And here I'd like to just point out one thing, and then I'll show some clips, that this was not saying I'm enacting a story. This was saying I am trying, the way that it was delivered and the way that it was written follows the newspaper format, from which Brecht drew the thing. So I'll show you two or three things. What you will see will be sometimes a bit of picture through the fact of a contradiction. So the contradiction that I pointed to you about the eggshells and the shaving, but the contradiction also for an actor to figure out what is she going to do when this 8 by diameter of 6 feet descends on her. Is she seen? Is she not seen? Is she part of that or is she not part of that? So all kinds of understanding of how to be on stage was there. And the second part that actually was important was the showing of work. Because the subtitle of the story is a wonderful subtitle, thou by the sweat of thy brow, thou shalt not earn thy bread. Right? The story is about a woman, as we know, who disguises herself as a chowkidar, who works very well and wins a medal as a chowkidar. One day there's a blast in the factory and she opens her eyes in the woman's ward. And then she begs the matron to say, I can't be here. So the matron said, where else can you be? She says, but I'm a man. So she isn't listened to. She's pushed into the female ward. And Brecht says she was pushed to that corner of the city that is left for the utterly marginal. And also says she could not get that job because she did not have the right gender or the right genitals. She did not have that genital between her legs that would have given her the job. Whereas she also says, we know that work produces the person rather than the person producing the work. Thou shalt not earn thy bread by the sweat of thy brow. I'll show you two pictures. I'll show you a set of images and then quickly 3 clips, and I'll annotate that. Could I have the images first, please? Yes.
Lights. Is there somebody? I think they're just above. Raman, just above you. There are some light switches.
PPT, yeah? As you will see, Nalini's installation was a sort of environment. So there's Barbara on the piano, there's Ritu. Yeah.
Full screen cover. Oh, so this is
Should be full screen. No? Not working full screen? See the bottom camera? Is it full screen?
bottom on the right.
On the right hand.
This is about.
So the story is about a sort of transgression. You can be a male doing a female part, and you can be a star like Bal Gandhar, but if you are a woman doing a male part, she's in difficulty, right? So you can see her transforming. In one senses, you can see her shaving. There's Barbara on the piano at the back, and there is a very crucial card game in the play which Ritu, since she was the only performer, does by various kinds of posture or jest or position or stance. Can I have the next one, please? Just to give you a little detail of devising, she worked a long time with the razor. Are these the two, right? Yeah, that's it, no? No, there's another, yes. That is what she called a piston, the kind of circular thing with a drawing on it, which would move, which rises and falls on the actor. Again, the image of shaving, and the fact that there is a suitcase and journey and traveling, a great part of the story, because the family moves from one place when with a certain set of clothing, then she rechanges the clothing, and then it moves. So they move to another family, and then the women's clothes are thrown out, and a man's clothing is put in. So there she is in the suitcase, taking the transformation via her body in a case, as it were, traveling. The journey, the travel takes her from being a woman to a man, from one city to the other. All right. I've been very thankful that over here I've been able to make some cuts of the film, which was a kind of documentary that was done by Nalini, but it had many problems and it's a very badly rendered one. So I'll quickly show you 3 bits just now. Can we have the basket and dolly, please? So there are some quite sharp cuts which we could only accomplish here, thankfully, with the help here of KCC. This is the basket and dolly, please. novelties that came into the performance in Bombay was the dolly. And of course, as you know, it's used in film. And so it came in as this sense of journey, train travel, etc., etc. Also, it came in, and at that time I like to believe it is about Bombay. There is one more that I'll show you, which is to show you Nalini's intervention with the pistons, and it's the piston, please, piston and changeover. That's live piano at the back. Yes, please, thank you. That's it. You can cut it there, please. Yeah. So just a little annotation. For Ritu to deal with these objects coming from the top on top of her was not an easy job, and we worked at it over the several days of rehearsal. And I just want to point to something that it has brought to my understanding of the theatre, something that started here, that the scenography, the design, the visual, the music, all the objects start together. It's not as if the play is made and then the object comes in. The object comes in from the start and could be a clash. And the clash would be about two artistic practices, two languages, two artists. But I think this space of negotiation has been part of my work. Do I have time to show one more?
Yeah,
Do I?
yeah. We'll give. Yeah, I think how long is it? To show it, I think.
Okay. So we'll show you one which is the actor doing a solo piece of work, doing a card game in which her sexual identity as a woman is discovered, and there is a bit of a flirtation between the landlord, who then blackmails them, going on. There's two small pieces. One is a card game, and one is the last piece is of her being discovered in hospital. and 1 minute 45-second clip of the accident, the discovery that she's a woman, and her banishment from the city. It was played on the track of Laurie Anderson, From the Air, and that was a track that played on it. Please, husband.
Good evening. This is your captain. We are about to attempt a crash landing. Please extinguish all cigarettes. Place your tray tables in their upright position. Your captain says, put your head on your knees. Captain says, put your head in your hands. Captain says, put your hands on your head, put your hands on your hips. This is your captain. We are going down. We're all going down. Together. And I said, this is going to be some day. Stand by. This is the time.
This is the text.
Yeah.
And this is the record of the time. This is the time. And this is the record of the time.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we saw little bits of your work on the job. Very different in texture, energy, pace, I would say also. So can you talk a little bit about what you were trying to do with the job? How do you,
I just want to remind, just so that because it's two artists, all the forms are coming in. There's art, Nalini Malani's art, there's a playwright, it's not a play text, but it's a short story. There's music.
yeah.
All the arts are in there. And there are two people, and of course, it's good in this way that you get it's one text and two totally different interpretations. In fact, we played back to back in Bombay. And I don't know about Anu, but I couldn't recognize the job in hers. I enjoyed the show, but and I wasn't asking myself where's the job. No, I was just enjoying the show. And yeah, she can't do that with my show because I'm a sole woman on stage, and it's pretty, I'm following the text. So she can't. Of course, yeah. That's one show where I loved Brecht's text so much. And just to give you a little context, this is 1997. I had made only one solo performance before that. I have no director. I have nobody. I just go into a room and then I have to sort of chabi lagao myself about how to take the first steps. And usually I have to play some music, a kind of music that preferably I've a little bit heard and it has moved me, but I don't know it too well. Ek hi baar shayad suna hai. So I collected bits of music like this and I told myself, I'll play them every day. Let's see how they take me. So that was one strand I let afloat, let the music be. And for me, that was my journey. I had to have co-actors in the room, otherwise it was very lonely. So music was one. And because this was only my second production, I needed something else. And I think it's interesting, now looking back, something told me that I'd never want to become a man on stage. How am I going to get to this story? How am I going to get to the heart of it? Because, we need no, Anu's already told you the story. How do I get to the heart of this story? life without becoming a man. And so that is the discovery for me as a person, as an actor. How will I get to the depths of this? Now, there's in fine print in one of the editions of the story that this Brecht took this story from a real life incident. So I was sitting in Delhi, and it was Max Muller Bhavan that had asked me to make this performance. So I told them, will you please dig out this story for me? And they took the pains, and they pulled out the story. And I got a further chagi from the story, the real life incident. Mrs. Hausmann lived as Mr. Hausmann for 12 years.
12 years.
Yeah. Whereas in the story, Brecht made it 4. Now, usually when we create art, we go the other way. We want to exaggerate. We want to give it more, and we would say the real life story is 4 years, but in my writing as Brecht, I make it 12 years. Ye to ulta hai sab. And so for me, this was also very challenging to try and discover kyun kiya usne aise. I thought if I keep dipping into the story, maybe I'll find the answer. I still haven't, but I have one theory. So now, if I'm not going to become a man, what is the way to discover? And it's a completely grabbing story. That इसको कैसे खेले नहीं है, इसको कैसे पाएं इस not कहानी को. How do I get to her? How do I get to her? How do I get to Mrs. House? And so what I did was, all this I did not analyze to myself. Strangely enough, I created another woman. So there's Maya, if you like, and then the Maya has this woman. And what I did was, I collected all the pots and pans from all the different things from the house. एक bathtub, एक ये जो कूटने वाला है ना, मसाला कूटने वाला, एक desk भी लगा दिया, क्योंकि मुझे लगा कि if let Brecht enter if he wants to, वो लगा दिया. One day as I was improvising, because my studio was a garage, it's a low ceiling, and one day as I stood on top of the desk, my head actually hit the ceiling. And so I already got one design idea. And I told our common friend who was actually staying in my house then, Ronesh, I said, Ronesh, will you please make me a kind of, some kind of ceiling with fiberglass, so that when I stand on that desk, I'm hitting the ceiling. For me, that was very moving, because the desk is Brecht, and the ceiling is the night watchman, Mr. Hausmann. So I didn't need that ceiling in rehearsal, because I had my Bana Banaya ceiling in the studio. Whenever I stood on it, I'd hit the ceiling. And you know, I don't know if you know the feeling, if you're standing on something and you hit that ceiling, which we never do in life, you're transported. You're in another territory altogether. So this is how I began. And I told myself, can I go through the daily actions of a woman, a generalized woman, and as I do the actions, will some part of the story come to me, any random part of the story? Now here's the interesting thing, and this somewhere mixes with performing Brecht. So you put a bathtub, you actually put water in it. Now you can't actually have a bath. Bath to the lamba chalega, soap chalega, wo chalega, if you do it realistically. So I'm sitting inside the bathtub, music is playing, so somewhere you're responding to the rhythm of the music, and of course because you're responding to rhythm, some actions start repeating themselves, and they become a gesture. And I'm saying this for people who are performers. You're bathing also, and then you think, and you know. And so you're doing these sort of things, and then with the taulia, and though they become fragmented actions, and they become repeated, and they also become like a gesture. And this is for me the first time that I was discovering, because I created an idea of another woman, that, ooh, I can. ये सब खुद ही हो रहा है, कोई director ना बोलने वाला है, ना देखने वाला है, ना respond करने वाला है, या वाली है. And so then, but I'm recording all of this on camera. That I always did from the start, because then I have to look at the camera. So that's what I did for the whole thing. So when I was sitting in the tub and doing all this water, the portion of the story that came to me was, I can't remember the text now, lying on the train, he found himself, he broke out in a sweat and it was pneumonia. So that was the bit that came to me as I was bathing in my bathtub. You saw Atta. Then this woman carries on, she does her morning exercises and some part of the story came to her. And then she does Putna, and there's the most telling line in the whole thing is, maybe it's men become men over millennium. Mrs. Hausmann became a man in a matter of a few days. So this Kutna with this danda, and then the danda suddenly, when it came here onto my shoulders, I already felt a sense of a night watchman. But then the danda came here and again, I kutoed and I became a woman. I mean, I didn't become a woman, it became an action with another energy. Then suddenly the danda goes here and it, and so then I took that danda and I went to the desk. And in 10 minutes before that, when I was doing exercises and I came on the desk and I stood on it, I had a sense of the night watchman. Then I went off and I did Putna and I did this, and this Putna wala was in my hand and I went to the desk and suddenly I became Brecht, who was writing the story. And that's when the fact that this is life, 12 years, is what happened in life. And so it's like this woman is having a little laugh at it. कि तुमने ये क्या 12 को 4 साल बना दिया? You know, it's like life is actually far more devastating. Where the hell did you make this? Why the hell did you make this? So if you like, Brecht also entered the. And there's one other moment I'd like to, and then I'll show you some pictures. You see, when you're working alone, you're so desperate. कोई कुछ तुम्हें बोलता है and you're wondering, oh, can this find a way into my process? And so my lighting designer actually came from the film world, Dilip Verma. He's done fabulous films, what was called New Wave. And he told me once, you know Maya, na, that in the Second World, maybe First World War, in order to cover burns, जब लोग बदन से पूरा जल जाता था, you put a kind of gold paper on it to hold the burns. Now that gave me an idea. And I thought at some point, this woman should also go for a party. But the going for a party was actually to wear the gold. And the gold was really because she's burnt. That is the story. She's completely burnt. And it is that burning that discovers her sex. It's such a telling moment. So I actually sit on a chair with my gold dress, which I pulled out of a cupboard, and over there then I start stitching. And that is where, if you like, a certain Kathakali background, I've always tried to stay away from doing Kathakali when I'm making a contemporary show. Beats में अगर वो ऐसा खटखटाता है Kathakali दिमाग में या बदन में, तो फिर उसको हम आने देते हैं. And then so this whole thing became about this woman in her gold dress stitching her husband's. It's a woman, yeah, doing her daily chores. She's stitching her husband's trousers. And I discovered one day, I took my husband's, actually his suit, and I was improvising with my hands in his pockets. And then I would pull out the pockets, and as I pulled out the pockets, the zip would get undone. फिर मैं दोबारा zip लगाती थी, उसका hook लगाती थी, hand under, take out the hands and the zip would. I found this so, it was charging me up. So that becomes a repeated action at the end when the lines are, and so she got lost. Her secret was discovered and her pictures were lined on the walls of the pubs where she was waitressing as a woman. It's so beautiful. And so then this gold. But the thing is that I, as an actor, discovered कि ये एक ही जो नहाने वाला है या जो सिलाई वाला है, it can start very realistically, but then what do you do with it? What do you do with it, and how do you let a moment of a story, any story, enter your zehen? You know what I mean? Yeah. So for me, doing the job was a great, great discovery. I wasn't looking at Brecht or anything. It was all about, tu kya karegi Maya? So let's have pictures, please. I can put out lights. Where are they? I'll just quickly talk you through them and the job. Oh dear, me. Are you? No. Please go to Brecht Symposium. Oh, yeah. And now go to the job. And now go to pics. Okay. And Brecht comes. Yeah, so here, so that's her bathtub. And then just go back. You know, that's the moment when she's discovering these 2 or 3 children that were sitting next to them, Miss Leitner on the train. And so she gave them little toys. So this is while I'm cleaning my toes. I'll carry on. Next. This is the bath. And he discovered that there was a friend in Mainz who had got a legacy from Brooklyn and that he was going off. Yeah. Next. And this moment I cannot remember, but it is something soon after the bathing. And then she runs off. As part of her exercise, she wants to run and do that, that leg exercise, which is to extend your leg. And that's when she discovers this whole, the night watchman bit. Man, and the line is not Brecht at this point, man, woman, night watchman, be what you like. Meaning, in the night, when you're a woman on your own, you can be what the hell you want. Next. Next. And then, when she's getting off the table, she discovers some papers on the table. And she discovers, this is the games we play in theatre. She discovers some papers there that are not hers, and when she looks at them a little closely, which she doesn't tell the audience, बाद में पता चलता है that it's actually fragments of Brecht's story. Next.
Fragments of
Brecht's story.
Okay.
And so then she's shining a light on them. The lights go off because she wants to, this woman who is doing her daily routine, she wants to know, what is this Brecht story? Next. And then she goes off, she's dropped that, she goes off to Putne Wala to do her, what is that line, Anu? No, it's by fortunes and fate. Well, something by fortune and fate, this new family of 4, this new family of 4 lived life, they lived life normally. As man and wife and children, life was normal, and all the time, instead of doing regular kutna, I'm doing it with this thing under my chin. Next. So, and text is going on. And then she comes with that back to the story. And then she's, if you like, overwriting on Brecht's story. Next. And then she has to have a little rest. It's all getting too much. And so, as any woman would have in her, housewife would take a little break. But a break may also something happens, which I can't remember. By the way, I want to tell you about the costume. I got an artist. Anu was not the only one who got an artist. I was an artist. She was a younger artist. And Sonia Purana, and I said, I want a woman's naked body painted on my, if I could go nude on stage, maybe one would do that, I'm not quite sure, but can you paint a body? So she's actually painted us. She put colors on a floor and I lay on it. And so whatever impression was created, uske ird-gird, she made her own circles and waves. So that's the costume. And so she sits and has an apple. And then the whole thing was how to stuff my face with an apple and still get the text out, because the story isn't stopping. The story keeps coming to this woman. And next. And this sequence I'll show you as a clip. Now this for me is interesting because I think this is where I found the solution to, I don't have to dress as a woman, as a man. What happened to me was, I think, I wanted to multitask. So if there's an istri in the hand, can there be something else at the feet and something else behind the neck? And I wanted to become this, if you like, a superwoman, to discover that bit of the story where she becomes a man. But what she's doing is ironing her husband's suit. You'll see it in a clip. Next. But you see that Kootne wala is in one hand, everything is constantly moving. And the iron in this one, and the text is talking about the transformation of Mrs. Hausmann into her husband. Next. And see, again, I never wore the, for me, when I was improvising, ye jo kootne wala hai, it's a very female thing. But when you hold it in, when I held it in a particular way, it became like the night watchman's danda. This is what he saves himself with and his factory with in the night. So already it has transformed in its you know, what it stands for. And then after speaking the lines, having held it in a certain way, if I don't wear the coat myself, but I wrap it around that, what do we call that thing in Hindi? Whatever the skutne wala thing is. It's, for me, musal, that it becomes far more significant. It's both like a hanger, but already my musal that is very feminine has become part of a masculine territory. But I'm the one holding it. Mrs. Hausmann is the one who is deciding kaun sa cheez feminine jaake masculine banega, kaun sa masculine cheez jaake feminine rahega uska thoda bahut. She is the one who decides, because I think right through the story, she really can't become fully a man. That's too much of a luxury. She still has to be the mother of her two kids. Next. And this sequence you saw that day, you saw Anu's thing with the cards. For me, the whole thing came out of this art where I'm saying, and so the three of them would sit down and play cards. Because it's very sexual. Yeah. Three of them are sitting down, the caretaker is making eyes at the woman, the husband, Mrs. Hausmann, is getting frantic. Ye meri biwi, ab hamare pura secret ko raaz khul jayega. I don't know whether Mrs. Hausmann is feeling, I can't bloody have sex with anybody because I'm busy being a man, you know. There's no way she has any, and this silly wife of hers is already having sex with the caretaker. So it's very sexual. And so that's the way somebody happened to tell me ki ande dalo aata mein to tum khub khel sakte ho. And it was really very, very tough dealing with this. You see, you are looking for a challenge when you're making theatre. You want some tension. So this aata became another co-actor for me. And so that whole sequence came out of this. Next.
How much more time do we have? Somebody amongst we started a little late, I know. Can we go for another, what is the cutoff?
Maybe another 10 minutes.
10 minutes.
So let's race through this. Next. And she even sings as well. She does karaoke. But the karaoke turns out to be all about taking bits of flesh and sticking it wherever you want and becoming a man. She's making fun of this business of becoming a man.
Yeah.
And next. Next. This is, this is clothes drying, another sequence. Dhona, and next. It was a very high point. This is always, we are already in hospital.
This is already there.
We are in the hospital. And then next, and now this is the stitching. Let's go through them. Next. And next. Slowly, वो previous वाला दिखाइए, इससे पहले वाला, ये okay, and next. Next. You see, so there's a zipping action, there's putting hand in air, and next. Okay, and let's play the clip, please. Which is coming out of the job, yes. Yes, ironing. Full screen. And
became a man in the same way that men become men over millennia through the production process.
There's a pocha under my feet.
Legs apart, his shirt sleeves. Jack with a beer in front of him. A picture waiting to be prominent with elaborated white paint. It's not enough to sit with legs apart, his shirt sleeves. Jack with a beer in front of him. Go to work, click the coins in your pocket, share a joke in your face, come home, tear off your clothes, kiss the wife, slump in bed, share a joke with the wife as well.
So I'm giving the man back to Brecht.
It takes more to be a man. Takes more.